Test Ender. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I could ask members of council to take their seats, we'll start the meeting in 1 minute. On va commencer la réunion dans 1 minute. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue dans le conseil municipal pour
Welcome to the City Council meeting of June 22nd,
22nd of June, 2016. For those who are able to, would you please rise for a moment of personal reflection and remain standing as Councillor Harder introduces our guest speaker, our guest singers for the national anthem. Thank you. If you could remain standing, and I'll ask Councillor Harder to introduce our very special guests who from Barrhaven are going to sing our national anthem. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And today I have 5 young ladies who are in the very early stages of being part of the Hummingbird Show Choir. Hummingbird Show Choir is part of the Nepean School of Music. Nepean School of Music has been in business since 1976. Tammy Raybould, who you may have heard of, it's her mom that started it. Sue Raybould and my oldest daughters, who are 40 and almost 44, actually went and took lessons there, just to put it in perspective of the age. And the Hummingbird Show Choir is a triple threat program designed to offer advanced students a unique opportunity to grow as musicians and performers. The competitive group has students grades 9 to 12, and they're from all over Ottawa, not just from Barrhaven, but these young ladies are all from Barrhaven and go to schools there. The choir, along with the live pit band, has just returned from a national show choir competition in Toronto, where they received awards for best vocals, best combo, and second place in their division. So without further ado, please let's listen and enjoy our friends from the Hummingbird Show Choir.
Till it pays.
Get the microphone on here, Matt. There we go. At this time in our meeting agenda, I'd like to call Klaus Beltzner to the podium for this meeting's City Builder Award presentation. And also, come on up here, Klaus, and also invite Councillor Scott Moffat and George DeRuse, because as you know, Manotick falls into two different municipal wards, both Councillor Moffat and Councillor DeRuse's. And it's great to have Klaus here, a very familiar face around City Hall and committee meetings, and a number of members of his family and his neighbors and his friends who are with us here today. Alors, merci d'accepter notre invitation.
So thank you for having accepted our invitation.
Klaus Beltzner has championed important issues for Manotick Village through the Manotick Village Association. Klaus also helps to keep thousands of residents informed about their community through his weekly Village Voice column in the Manotick Messenger. Grâce à sa chronique hebdomadaire intitulée
Klaus has also helped to keep thousands of residents informed about their community through his weekly Village Voice column in the Manotick Messenger.
Both councillors as well as City of Ottawa staff on current and potential issues of importance to the community. Klaus is a trusted and reliable advocate for Manotick and works tirelessly to increase citizen engagement throughout the village of Manotick. During Klaus's tenure as president of the MVCA, membership has grown to over 500 people. That's more than 10% of Manotick Village. Durant la présidence de Klaus à l'association.
During Klaus's tenure as president of the MVCA, membership has grown to over 550 people.
Range of knowledge and experience, Klaus is vigilant and well-informed on issues in the community and has always worked with councillors and staff with a spirit of collaboration, not confrontation. Whether fostering the Keep It to 40 lawn sign campaign, providing input on the secondary plan, or championing transit issues, Klaus truly loves his community and shows it through everything that he does. Thank you very much, Klaus, for your continued leadership in your community. Merci, Klaus, pour votre leadership dans la communauté de Manotick.
Thank you for your leadership in the community.
And Councillor Moffat to present you with the Mayor's City Builder Awards. Come on over here. We're gonna push through.
Please don't worry, I don't have a very long speech. Mayor Watson, Councillor Moffat, Councillor DeRuse, I'm deeply touched by this award. It is a privilege for me to play a role in building the Manotick Village and surrounding community, in partnership with our two local councillors and with other community associations. The BIA is here as well. Donna, stand up. It's a real honor to have my work recognized. Thank you very much for this award, and thanks also to the wonderful officers and directors of the Manotick Village and Community Association. Could you please stand up? Where are they? Come on. There we go. And a special thank you goes to my wife, Judy, who complains regularly about the amount of time I spend on community work, but nonetheless supports me in every way. Judy, please stand up. Thank you very much.
That was short. Well deserved, Klaus. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate it. That's yours.
We'll get you a smaller one. We'll take that back.
Thank you, Klaus, and family members and friends and neighbors, and thank you, Councillor DeRuse and Moffat. For our next presentation, I'd like to invite Saad Bashir, Director of the City's Economic Development Innovation Department, Bruce Lazenby from Invest Ottawa, the President of Invest Ottawa, as well as Innovation Pilot Project, participants and sponsoring the City of Ottawa managers to come forward. So all of the participants in the Innovation Project, Bruce, Sad, and the sponsoring managers. I'd also like to invite Councillors Blais, Hubley, and Tierney to come forward, because last summer, together with these councillors, and this was, as you may recall, an initiative, an innovation of Councillor Hubley, I had the pleasure of announcing the launch of our Innovation Pilot program, making Ottawa one of the first municipalities in Canada to create a program dedicated to finding and testing new and innovative approaches to delivering municipal services. So welcome. This is really a remarkable program, and I'd encourage people who are watching and listening to this on TV, and I know because it's a good news story, the media will cover it very, very extensively. In less than a year, we've received more than 65 applications from companies here in Ottawa and across Canada. En moins d'un an, nous avons reçu.
In less than a year, we've received more than 65 applications from companies here in Ottawa and across Canada.
Structuring this program, the City sought the Council of Partners at the Build in Canada Innovation Program and the National Research Council located here in Ottawa. We also worked with entrepreneurial groups like Invest Ottawa, TIE Ottawa, and our post-secondary institutions. I'm delighted today to announce that we have selected 8 exciting pilot projects that will be tested by the City of Ottawa. The successful pilots are VoIP Shield, an Ottawa-based company who will be piloting their voice audit software, which is an important link in ensuring the security of voice over IP phone systems. Secondly, and maybe you can just give us a shout-out who was with VoIP. Hello there, how are you? Our former president of the Board of Trade. WAW Technologies, who will test their networking monitoring effectiveness of their Catchware product. Right over there. Is it WA or WAW? WA. Gamify, the innovative startup based out of Carleton University, will be running a pilot to gamify some of our upcoming staff mental health awareness training sessions with interactive contests like videos and quizzes. So Gamify is right there. Local startup Synchro Data will pilot their Trendify live social media monitoring and analyticals tool. There's our friends right here. Welcome. Savvy Docs will test a cloud-based document collaboration solution that will manage the application process for the Innovation Pilot Project. Right here. Signority has developed an e-signature tool that will manage the authorization process for the negotiation of our pilot agreements with successful applicants. Right over there. And our friend came with us on our trade mission to Beijing, so congratulations. I'd like to note that both Savvy Docs and Signority are housed locally at Invest Ottawa. Millennium Inc. is a startup based out of Waterloo whose product Lace Labs is an online forum where municipalities can share information regarding pilots that they have undertaken. So Millennium is, he couldn't make it. Our 8th pilot project comes from Key to Access in partnership with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. They have developed a product that will assist people with visual and motor impairments in activating the pedestrian walk signal at traffic intersections. This is really quite fascinating. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., everyone is invited to attend a demonstration by Key to Access and CNIB of their product at the intersection of Elgin Street and Waverly Street. So our friends right here and right behind me. Demain à 2 heures.
Tomorrow at 2 p.m., everyone is invited to attend a demonstration by Key to Access and CNIB of their product at the intersection of Elgin Street and Waverly Street.
City for several months, at which point the city will validate their performance and provide feedback to these entrepreneurs as they seek to launch and grow their businesses. Where a potential improvement is found to a city process, these companies may then be moved into our traditional procurement process to compete for work on an ongoing basis. Although the city is not required to purchase any of the products or sign any contracts, this is a significant opportunity for these entrepreneurs to test their products in a real-life scenario and build their reputation as a credible business. The city will also highlight these 8 companies on our city website, ottawa.ca/innovate.
The city would also highlight those 8 companies on our website at ottawa.ca innovate. Maintenant, j'aimerais féliciter les projets pilotes qui ont été retenus et j'aimerais aussi applaudir le leadership des gestionnaires de la ville qui ont entrepris ces projets pilotes. C'est une merveilleuse occasion d'aider des entreprises et j'ai hâte de voir les résultats. J'aimerais maintenant inviter Bruce Lazenby qui va terminer son mandat bientôt à Invest Ottawa. Et merci Bruce pour votre leadership dans ces initiatives. Et donc, nous allons être très fiers.
And I'd also like to thank Saad Bashir and his team who have taken the role of this, the leadership role, to assign managers within the organization under Steve's leadership to these particular pilot projects. And my colleagues, Tim Tierney and Steve Blay, and Alan Hubley. You may recall, I think it was at budget time, Alan brought forward this idea of how can we help local businesses, really fledgling businesses, get off the ground and test them in a real work environment such as the City of Ottawa. And because of your idea and the support of Councillors Blay and Tierney, we're here today with what we hope will be the next Shopify or other great success story, and we wish you the very, very best. And now I believe we have some certificates that we're going to present. No, we don't. Well, we cut that out of the budget. I'm sorry. It says here to pose for a picture, and I guess we don't give you a certificate, so one's in the mail. We'll get one to you. So why don't we just get a big group picture here, Roger, and we'll all push back there. And let's give a big round of applause to these entrepreneurs who are creating jobs in our city. Félicitations.
Yeah, squeeze right in there, please. Get it right in there. We need more squeezing.
Thanks, Alan. Good work. Thanks. Nice to see you. Take care. Well, thank you all very, very much. Merci beaucoup. And we look
Thank you very much.
forward to tomorrow's event with the CNIB. Our final presentation is the City Manager's Award for Excellence 2016. It gives me great pleasure to be here to celebrate this year's award recipients of the City Manager's Award for Excellence. Je suis très heureux d'être ici aujourd'hui.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today to honor and celebrate this year's recipients of the City Manager's Award of Excellence.
To the award recipients, family members, and colleagues who have joined us here today. This prestigious award is an important way to acknowledge exceptional work. Nominations for the City Manager's Award for Excellence highlights the range of expertise, talent, and dedication that our city employees bring to their workplace each and every day. These awards are particularly noteworthy this year because the first time they are being celebrated under the leadership of our new City Manager, Steve Kanellakis. I'd ask Steve to come up at this point. And the winners and all the nominees are examples of employee engagement and commitment that ultimately results in better services for our residents. Les lauréates et
The winners and all the nominees are examples of employee engagement and commitment that ultimately results in better services to our
teams bring experience, expertise, and dedication to making a difference with their fellow colleagues and the residents of Ottawa. Their innovation and client-focused approach represents service excellence and respect for all the people we serve. This award celebrates our dedication to helping city staff use their talents to reach their full potential, and we remain committed to supporting staff in using innovative ideas to create outstanding results for the residents we serve. The winners in the 5 categories were announced earlier this month at a ceremony attended by all the nominees. It's my pleasure and privilege to have the opportunity to recognize and personally thank, along with my colleagues on Council, all of the recipients here at City Council today. The winners in this year's City Manager's Award for Excellence represent a wide array of achievements in their respective categories, turning ideas into results within the corporation, turning ideas into results within the community, emerging leaders, excellence in internal focused service delivery, and excellence in resident focused service delivery. They also encompass the impressive scope of talent and expertise in our corporation. The City is fortunate to have dedicated staff that work tirelessly to better understand the needs of our residents and to build a stronger, more vibrant and inclusive city. On behalf of my colleagues and residents of Ottawa, we congratulate the winners and the nominees. Au nom de mes collègues du Conseil et
On behalf of my council colleagues and residents of Ottawa, we congratulate our winners and nominees.
Your dedication to the public service. Now I'll hand things over to our City Manager, Steve Kanellakis, who will announce this year's winners of City Managers Awards for Excellent. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Watson. Bon matin. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Award of Excellence is the highest distinction an employee can receive at the City of Ottawa, and I know at this moment you're all sitting here, and I hope people that are listening and they're tuned in online capture the feeling of pride that you must all feel to be recognized not only by your peers, by the organization and by our council today for the incredible things you've done over the past year. And I know you're all sitting here with incredible pride and almost a little bit of nervousness in terms of being here in front of the mayor and council to receive this reward. So it's such an honor for us to have you here today and recognize the people that make the city run and make this truly a better place. These awards recognize exceptional contributions to the City of Ottawa, and all the award recipients exemplify the exceptional talents and accomplishments of city staff. So it's quite an honor and one that you've all rightly earned. I also want to recognize the family and friends and supporters who are in attendance today, and I encouraged that when we had our award ceremony the other week, that they do come, and they come celebrate with you the great achievement that you're being recognized for today. It's critical to our organizational success to recognize our colleagues for exceptional contributions that directly benefit the city, its residents, its businesses, and its visitors. I returned to the City of Ottawa after being away for a year with a strong appreciation of how leadership through our staff within an organization can set the foundation for the results we aim to achieve. We work in a world-class city, and it should not come as a surprise that the City of Ottawa was ranked the best place to live in Canada by Money Sense magazine. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens on the backs and the hard work that we put into the city every day to make our contribution in making this a better city in which to live. All of the winners we are celebrating today have demonstrated this leadership by going above and beyond their regular duties. They found ways to innovate, set the bar higher, and take risks. And innovators are critical in any organization. I've been talking a lot about that to the 1,400 employees I've spoken to in the last couple of weeks, how it's critical that we have innovators in our organization that push the bar forward, take risks, and accept challenges. And to move forward as an organization, we must continue to innovate, find new solutions, make new links, and empower change. And that takes leadership among our staff and all levels of the organization. As leaders and innovators, that's why you're here today, because we recognize and celebrate what you bring to the table. Your individual contributions come together to create a strong and successful workforce and organization. You've heard me say it, and I'll say it again. We're one city and we're one team, which is fundamental to our collective success. All of the incredible work being honored today reflects the pride you have in our city and the pride you take in the work you do. Nous sommes tous très fiers. As the caretakers of our organization, you're making it a better place than when you found it. This is our single most important role as municipal servants, and I've been talking a lot about that in the last few weeks. It's an honor for me to celebrate and publicly recognize your achievements. You're leaving a legacy for which we are all grateful. I now have the great pleasure of publicly recognizing the winners in each of the 5 categories the mayor mentioned. And I'll start right into the first category. From intention to action, turning ideas into results within the corporation, recognizes nominees who have delivered concrete results within the organization through innovative action. The award recipients in this category are the Child Care Modernization Team. I'd like to read their names and then ask them to come up for a photograph with the mayor and myself. The members of this team are Silvio Avarello, Stephanie Bordage, Robin Bauer, Rachel Clark, Jocelyn de Riviere, Cynthia Donovan, Laura Epp, Leonore Evans, Marilyn Ferguson, Danielle Freight, Christine Haynes-Shirello, Anna Helpin, Monica Hodovic Jansen, Chantal Jacques Sege, Jose Levesque, Amy McGilvery, Maureen Oldford, Sandra Patno, Jeanette Perron, Patrick Power, Michelle Quinlan, Jason Sabara, Tracy Sakely, Gary Cito, Kathy Singleton, Sandy Stimpson, Rachel Thierat, and Carolyn Yapsley. Would you please come up and join me, and I'll just read what your accomplishments are once you come up here. Thank you. This team implemented a number of initiatives to transform the cities of Ottawa's childcare system and align it with a new provincial direction. This team's hard work resulted in new efficiencies that will positively impact many Ottawa families. Congratulations to all the team members of the Childcare Modernization Initiative.
Can you aim the frame down a bit? The other way. That's it. Good. Everybody there? You can move back a bit more.
Thank you. Congrats. The next category, from intention to action, turning ideas into results within the community, honors those who have taken an idea and turned it into an operational reality that directly benefits residents. I'm pleased to recognize the Targeted Engagement Diversion Program and invite these awards recipients to join me, and I'll name them and then I'll call them and then you can come up. Paramedic Commander Andrew Hemlin, Superintendent of Communications Training Molly Klein, Jeff Knight, Communications Officer Patrick Lamoureux, Paramedic Superintendent of Clinical Training Shannon Leduc, Paramedic Superintendent of Quality Review Robert Millette, Paramedic Commander Jocelyn Marciano, Paramedic Commander Neil Martin, Paramedic Commander Ashley Murfin, Deputy Chief Kevin Newell, Paramedic Commander Andrew Orchard, Mika Richland, and Paramedic Superintendent of Operations Dina Schofield. This unique program delivers specialized care to a vulnerable patient demographic while also balancing the increased demand for paramedic services. This is the first in Ontario, where patients are transported directly to a tailored program for their addiction and mental health issues. In its first 6 months, 750 patient calls for service were diverted from the emergency departments in this city via this program. Congratulations to all the team members here today. Please join the Mayor and I for a picture. Thank you. For the Emerging Leaders category, this year's award recipient is Shelley Van Buskirk, and I invite Shelley to please come forward and receive her award. We recognize Shelley for leading the progressive transformation in the area of homelessness. She played a central role in shifting the culture from passive street outreach and emergency shelter services to a housing-first approach. This approach focuses on transitioning people to housing, which is one of the significant priorities of this city. So congratulations, Shelley. Please join the mayor and I for a picture. Thank you. The award recipient in the Excellence in Internal Focus Service Delivery category is Kathy McGee. A crowd favorite. Kathy's being recognized today for a number of reasons. She brought world-class conferences to Ottawa, and she's also led and overseen many city-led conferences. And she implemented the city's volunteer management software, as well as supports the training at over 85 sites across Ottawa. Congratulations, Kathy. Please join us for a picture. The fifth and final category, Excellent in Resident-Focused Service Delivery, recognizes two groups who significantly improved the client service experience. This is the first time in the award's 10-year history where we actually have a tie in this category, so I'll announce each one of the two winners in this category. So the first award for Resident-Focused Service Delivery goes to the Highway 417 Expansion Project Team. And I'll read their names and what they accomplished. Congratulations to Evelyn Danilko, Richard Holder, Greg Kent, Robert Orkin, Maria Pinto, Caitlin Prevost, Daniel Richardson, Barbara Stacy, Jocelyn Turner, and Matthew Wolstenholme. As a result of their coordinated efforts, team members delivered the single largest infrastructure project delivered by the City of Ottawa to date with minimal disruptions to the public. They also used a variety of innovative and unique approaches to mitigate construction and traffic impacts, including quick movable barriers, rapid bridge replacement techniques, and no-dig methods of tunneling and directional drilling. This team's success can also be attributed to the proactive approach to both internal and external communication. Congratulations to all members of this team. Please join us for a photo. We have to back up a bit.
Oh, yeah, down? There? I don't know where. Raj, you tell me what to do. Oh, okay, thanks. Sorry, Raj. You're the boss.
Thanks, guys. And our second winning nomination, the Excellence in Resident Focused Service Delivery, and our final winner of the day is Nancy Kennedy. In the past year, Nancy has led 3 major initiatives that have improved access to dental services for the city's most marginalized populations. This work includes a new dental clinic at the Wabanel Centre for Aboriginal Health, the newly integrated Healthy Smiles Ontario program, and the provision of dental treatment to Syrian refugees. Thank you, Nancy, for providing Ottawa's most vulnerable residents with access to health care, education, and preventative tools. Please join me and the Mayor for your photo. Thank you. So thank you to all for making Ottawa a better place. Our city and our residents benefit from the work that you do. Please join me in another round of applause for all the award recipients today. You should be honored and celebrate your great achievements. On behalf of the Mayor, City Councillors, management, and all your colleagues, I'd like to say a thank you for your hard work and dedication. Have a great day and enjoy this moment. Thank you.
Well, congratulations to all. Madam Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Conseiller Manette.
Present.
Councillor Middick.
Here.
Councillor Harder. Here. Councillor Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor Elshantiri.
Present.
Councillor Caudry.
Present.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Shirelli.
Here.
Councillor Aglai.
Here.
Councillor Deans. Here. Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseiller Fleury.
Ici.
Councillor Nussbaum.
Present.
Councillor McKinney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Chernushenko.
Present.
Conseiller Cloutier.
Present.
Conseiller Blais.
Present.
Councillor DeRuse.
Here.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Councillor Kakish.
Present.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Mayor Watson.
See?
Le Karamatitane, Monsieur le Maire.
See? So I know that we have some students from Councillor Chernushenko's ward who are going to join us in just a moment, and while we're waiting for them, I thought I would let members of council, the public, know that on June 8th, Chris Phillips and myself hosted a Ottawa for Fort Mac Western themed fundraiser that was in support of Canadian Red Cross United Way's relief appeal. Dozens of local businesses answered the call, and they donated their goods, services, and products, and over 700 people were in attendance. And I'm very pleased to report that a total of $128,580.44 was raised for the Fort Mac effort to help those residents in Fort McMurray. So congratulations to all who participated. And I'd like to thank the performers, Kira Isabella, the Rivertown Saints, the Abrams, Jordan McIntosh, Megan Patrick. All came courtesy of Ottawa's New Country 94 and Bell Media. And logistics for the event were generously donated by Brook Street Hotel, who donated the artist's rooms, Avant-Garde Designs, Event Design Group, LaMarche Electric, Securitas, and Media Plus Advertising. And food was provided by the Delta Ottawa City Centre, Gabriel's Pizza, Milano Pizzeria, Benici Pizzeria, Crust and Crate Public House, Newport Restaurant, Bakery Baby, Lone Star Texas Grill, Papa Jack's, and Sobeys Barhaven. Samplings of beer were provided by Bose All Natural Brewing, Beyond the Pale, Bicycle Craft, Big Rig, Broadhead, Castle, Clock Tower, Dominion, Kitchissippi, Lowertown, Whippersnapper, and Waller Street. ice was provided by Levy Restaurant. So you can see a lot of people came forward, and $128,580 has been sent to the Red Cross and United Way to help those fellow residents. Councillor Chernyshenko, if you'd like to introduce our special guests. I apologize you had to wait there a little bit because we had a full house, but very nice to welcome you.
Yes, thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure to welcome here to our council meeting a group of 7 and 8 students from the Element School, which is at Lansdowne, an interesting use of second floor story space at the building, and great to have you here today. Thank you.
So welcome to the students from Element. Glad to have you here. Confirmation of minutes, adoption de procès verbaux pour le 8 juin 2016. Carried. Declaration of interest, including those originally rising from prior meetings. Déclaration de conflit d'intérêt? None. Communications as presented. Regrets, Councillor Taylor advised he'd be absent from the City Council meeting of June 22nd due to city business. So you know he's our representative at AMO. Motion to introduce reports. Motion portant présentation de rapport. Conseiller Leeper et Moffat, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Mayor. Move that the report from Hydro Ottawa Holding Inc., entitled Hydro Ottawa Holding Inc. 2015 Annual Report, Community and Protective Services Committee Report 15, Finance and Economic Development Committee Report 15A, Planning Committee Report 27, and Transit Commission Report 9 be received and considered.
Carried. So we have Hydro first. We'll just go through the consent agenda and come back to Hydro as our first item of business. So committee reports, Community and Protective Services Committee Report number 15, Aboriginal Working Committee update, mise à jour du Comité de l'étude sur les questions autochtones, received. Finance and Economic Development Committee Report number 15A, Capital Adjustment and Closing of Project, City Tax and Rate Supported, carried. Investment and Endowment Fund Report, Councillor El Shantiri and Cloutier have a technical amendment. There was a translation issue. Councillor El Shantiri, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Move by myself, second by Councillor Cloutier. Whereas the French recommendation one contained in the above note staff report as presented to the Finance Economic Development Committee was incorrect and referenced the incorrect provincial regulation, and where the English version of the recommendation one contained in said report referenced the correct regulation being Ontario Regulation 438-97, therefore be it resolved that French recommendation 1 be corrected to accurately reflect the wording contained in the English recommendation as follows. Do you want me to read the rest of it?
I think it's before us, and Councillor El Shantiri has a challenge with his voice, so I think we can concur with item 1. Carried. And on the report as amended? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillors El Shantiri and Cloutier. Proposed 2017 budget timeline and consultation process? Carried. Municipal Capital Facility Designation Agreement for the Innovation Centre at Bayview Yards? Carried. Planning Committee, Ontario Municipal Board Appeals, Phase 2 of low-rise infill housing. There were some missing schedules. Councillor Harder, seconded by Councillor Tierney, has a motion with respect to the missing schedules. Councillor Harder, please.
It's not before you on the screen, so basically what it was, where we have, through the negotiations of Mr. Mark and the people involved, the various appellants, we had come to an agreement which Planning Committee did support, and they weren't included in your package, so this adds those to this. And it goes to, Mr. Mark will report to, I think, July 10th to the board.
Okay, thank you. So on Councillor Harder and Tierney's technical revisions to document 1 and 2 motion?
Carried.
Carried. On the report as amended?
Carried.
Carried. The next is Riverside South Community Design Plan Update, Official Plan, and Zoning Amendments. Councillor Kakish has a motion that would include the MOU being attached, seconded by Councillor Harder. So Councillor Kakish on the MOUs being attached.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this is a follow-up to the direction from Planning Committee to staff to draft the MOU with RSDC for today's meeting. I'll read the therefores. Be resolved that City Council receive and approve the MOU between the City of Ottawa and Riverside South Development Corporation attached in Document 1 to be added as Document 9 to the staff report upon approval. And therefore be resolved that City Council delegate the authority to the Chief Development Review Services in consultation with the City Clerk and Solicitor to execute provisions of the approved MOU. And Mr. Mayor, just quickly, I'd like to thank staff who have been working on this from the Planning Department. I know Don Morse has been the lead on the CDP for the past year, and I joke about him moving his retirement date a few times because of some of the delays, and he's been great coming out to the community, meeting with the residents and addressing their concerns. I want to also thank Derek Moody and Leanne as well for helping behind the scenes, and Councillor Jan Harder, who's helped facilitate some of these discussions and closing the deal as well. And of course to RSDC, which is comprised of Urbandale and Ridgecraft, for their generous contribution to the community to advance the recreational opportunities, which is a big priority for many of my residents in Riverside South. Thank you.
Great. So on the technical amendment, moved by Councillor Kakis, seconded by Councillor Harder. Carried. On the report as amended. Carried. Next is zoning bylaw amendment 890 Greenbrier Avenue, modification au règlement de zonage 890 Avenue Greenbrier. Carried. Dissent by Councillor Brockington. Next is zoning bylaw amendment 2280 City Park Drive, modification au règlement de zonage 2280 Promenade City Park. Carried. Transit Commission, we have a motion and people would like to speak on that. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the bulk consent agenda? On the bulk consent agenda as presented? Carried. So it's now my pleasure to ask our Chair of Hydro Ottawa, Jim Durrell, and the CEO, Bryce Conrad, and I know Jeffrey Simpson is here with us from Hydro as well. They have a presentation and then we will open it up for questions. Mr. Durrell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of Council. In addition to Bryce and Jeff here with us today, we have Lance Jeffries, who is our Chief Electrical Distribution Officer, and of course Tina, who takes good care of us all behind the scenes. I'm going to assume, first of all, I would like to thank Councillor Harder and Councillor Wilkinson, who you appointed to sit on the Board of Hydro. As you know, we are totally owned by the City of Ottawa, and I'm very thankful for their input and their attendance at meetings. It's been excellent. I'm going to assume that you've all read the annual report and had a chance to peruse our strategic plan, and so I'll touch on some of the highlights. Bryce will touch on some of the strategic plan highlights, and then obviously we'll throw it open to questions if you have any. It was a great year, quite clearly, for Hydro Ottawa and for the City of Ottawa. We had a record $32.4 million in net income, and because of that we're able to pay a dividend to the City of Ottawa, which was paid on April the 29th of $19.4 million. This exceeded considerably the $14 million that you were guaranteed back when we did our strategic plan 5 years ago, and is a foundation upon which our new strategic plan and dividend strategy is being built. Every year we get asked the question, why pay a dividend, why not use it to reduce rates? And I think I could safely tell you, as I have in previous years, that most of you know that Hydro is a very, very heavily regulated business, and that our rates and everything we do is ostensibly set out by the OEB, the Ontario Energy Board. 81% of our bill, almost 81.9% of our bill, frankly, is flow-through. We buy energy from the independent energy operator. We move through, we pay for transmission fees. So when our customers and your shareholders receive a bill from Hydro Ottawa, only about 18.1% of that bill is something that we can actually manage internally. And that doesn't diminish our role and responsibility. It still represents a lot of money, but it's something to recognize. And in that 18.1%, the OEB, again, through its regulations, only allows us to, we have two forms of operating costs, operating and capital. And the operating costs are flow-through costs that we have, it's just, there's no profit made, there's nothing done. The capital costs, on the other hand, the money that we use to sustain and grow hydro, we have a regulated rate of return that's given to us by the OEB, and it's out of that regulated rate of return that we are able to pay the dividend. And so even if Council in its generosity decided it didn't want the $9.4 million, and we would graciously take it back, it would have zero impact on the rates that people pay. And if you have further questions, we would be happy to answer them as we go along. Some of you would have seen the announcement on Monday. It was a historic day for us in the province, and the mayor was in attendance, and we were able to purchase the final one-third of the Chaudière Falls from Hydro-Quebec. This now gives us 100% of the falls, and this makes the City of Ottawa and Hydro Ottawa the largest municipal generator of clean energy, if you wish to call it that, in the province. And it's something you should be very, very proud of, and it's something we're proud of as well. And if you have an opportunity by next year when we celebrate our sesquicentennial, you will see not only a whole new generating station, but plaza to honor our First Nations, and we will bring the falls back to the people of Ottawa in addition to providing an excellent renewable energy source for the city. As we continue to grow and cooperate with the City of Ottawa, we've also, through Council's recognition, have taken over your LED lighting conversion. And in 4 years' time, that will start to save the City of Ottawa $4 million a year, which is substantial. We hope that that type of cooperation will allow us to do further things as the city explores new efficiencies. When we went to the OEB with our strategic plan to look at our rates for the next 5 years, it's important you know that part of that plan we have over $500 million in capital infrastructure investments that we will be making in the next 5 years. We're really in the business, when it comes right down to it, of providing safe, reliable, and affordable power. If we can't bring the energy to the homes of your constituents in a timely and safe manner, all the rest of what I'm saying doesn't mean a tinker's dam, quite frankly. And one of the things that has been very, very important, and we've been very proud of, is when we measure our reliability, and we measure two things: frequency of outages and duration of outages. And that's something that every month our board looks at, and you'll see in this graph, compared to all the major other LDCs in the province, that little green circle down at the bottom shows that your Hydro Ottawa does a better job at solving frequencies in both duration and frequency faster than anybody else, and that's really the business we're in. This $500 million that I talked about in infrastructure improvements will only go to further keep us down in that bottom quartile. Bryce will talk briefly about the strat plan, but a key part of our strategic plan is obviously our new dividend policy. The policy that was in existence previously, that was approved by City Council, paid basically 60% of our net income, or a base floor of $14 million. We have exceeded that $14 million every year. The new plan going forward recognizes a number of things, and in particular that the money that we give back to the city is invested in municipal services and often in services that benefit Hydro. So it's a win-win not only for the City of Ottawa but for Hydro Ottawa. So our new policy will do two things. One, it will break out the regulated part of our business, the Hydro Ottawa part of it, and it will pay the City of Ottawa 60% of our net income, the same as previously, but with a new floor, a guaranteed amount of a minimum of $20 million a year. This allows your mayor, it allows you as council, and it allows your city management to plan and know that you're going to have a base guaranteed dividend every year of $20 million. Should our net income be higher than that, and the 60% shows that, you will then get that increased amount. By breaking out the regulated part of our business, and not to make this overly complicated, we are obviously subject to constant credit ratings by both Standard & Poor's and the Dominion Bond Rating Service. They view our regulated business much like a city is looked at, and that is that you have really a guaranteed source of income and the ability to tax people as you desire. Our regulated business, in a sense, does that for us. But when we move into the generating business, while we think it fulfills everything that Ottawa is trying to do as a clean city, it's the province's Green Energy Act, it does all of those great things, the regulators, frankly, view it, because it's unregulated, that it's more risky. And so it impacts our credit ratings. And when our credit ratings are impacted, that's neither good for the city or anybody else, in particular when we want to spend as much money as we want to spend on infrastructure. And so the plan going forward, which we have reviewed in depth with your city management and with the mayor and our board of directors, and it's been over 1 year in the making, I think accomplishes all of the goals that we were looking to. Bryce, I'll turn it over to you to give some highlights in the strategic plan, and then I'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to hit on some of the high notes, you have before you our new revised strategic direction for 2016 to 2020. As many of you may recall, the previous strategic direction started in 2012, and as part of that, the fundamental shift for the corporation was to make the corporation more customer-centric, to put the customer at the center of everything we did. This is obviously a journey. This plan that we're tabling here today sort of doubles down on that existing plan. We want to further digitalize the relationship we have with our customers, to put them in control of their energy consumption, give them the tools, digital tools and wherewithal to manage their energy consumption on a daily basis. It's also future-proofing the company for the sake that, you know, should electric vehicles become de rigueur.
You speak up a little bit, Bryce.
Sure. Should electric vehicles and electrification in general become de rigueur, the system is in place for it. We have a strategy to embrace that. It also speaks again to to additional generation requirements and generation assets that we will look to pursue, obviously in the clean green area. And finally, our goal through this entire plan is to be the tried, trusted, and true energy management advisor to the citizens of Ottawa, both the citizens and small businesses. I think the plan speaks for itself. We're quite proud of it, and we look forward to implementing it in partnership with the city.
Thank you, Bryce. So in closing then, in the report in front of you, we would ask that you receive the financial report and the strategic plan, approve our new policy dividend schedule. We are appointing KPMG as our auditors, which is a change, as you would see in your report. After 10 years with EY, we've moved to KPMG. We would ask as well that you reappoint two of our board members, Dale Craig and Kalai Kalashian, who have served us extremely well in their first term, and of course then instruct the mayor to do this. So I thank you for your time and your attention, and I'd be pleased, Your Worship, to throw this open to questions if there are any.
Great. Let me just thank you, Mr. Durrell, and the board members. I know our representatives, Councillors Wilkinson and Harder, very much appreciate all of the extra hours that you put in as chair of the board. And to Bryce, that was a very wonderful and exciting and historic moment at the Chaudière Falls, and we had the outgoing energy minister and the new energy minister, along with many other representatives of the community, and I think people will be pleasantly surprised when the falls finally are opened back up to the public. First Nations will be included, and we become a leader, the most significant municipal leader in green energy in the country. So kudos to you all. And Councillor Chernyshenko, on that note, the floor is yours for questions.
Thank you very much to all of you and your teams. You raised the issue of your delivery of the LED conversions of our streetlights to LED and the phenomenal amount of savings that are available to us from that. That's just one example to me of an important partnership between us formally as the City of Ottawa and Hydro. And I just want to put on record as chair of the Environment Committee that the work, our air quality and climate change management plan, both reductions, conservation initiatives in the city rely heavily on that partnership and the delivery that is done considerably by Hydro Ottawa staff. And now our work on the renewable energy strategy, the participation of a number of your staff in our early work has been very valuable, because who knows better what the current state of energy use is than one of the major utilities in the city. I look forward to meeting directly with you, Bryce, in a couple of weeks' time to update you on that renewable energy strategy. I did have a question. As indicated, you touched on briefly preparation for electrification. We see a global trend where the shift towards using electricity to charge batteries for all kinds of purposes, whether so-called power walls in people's homes or vehicles or possibly municipal fleets, is a likely trend that's going to grow significantly. So I was interested in how carefully you're tracking that trend, how rapidly. There's a chicken and egg right now of, until we see the vehicles wanting to charge, we're not going to put in too much infrastructure, but if that comes really quickly, can we get that up and running? Can you describe for me, reassure me that you're able to deliver at a rapid pace if and when we see that?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Councillor, and thanks for the support we get from you and your committee on the Environment Committee. With respect to the electrification, I would argue with electric cars, there's the chicken and the egg, the charging station versus the car. There's also the fox in the room, which is the price of gas today, which is ridiculously cheap in comparison. So we're not seeing the rapid uptake in electric vehicles as many have expected, at least not in Ottawa. I think I can probably count it on, probably less than 500 would be my honest assessment. That's not to say that it won't grow and boom as it goes forward. The provinces launched their climate change action plan, which obviously forecasts by 2024 that there will be an electric or a hybrid vehicle in every multi-car household. So with that in mind, our system is well prepared for it. We have worked with Natural Resources Canada. We've worked with a number of stakeholders to sort of anticipate where the growth will be from electric vehicle charging stations, where that additional load will come from. The good news from our perspective, Councillor, and you can appreciate this, is the system peaks during the day. People don't charge their cars during the day. They would be charging their cars, ostensibly at night, between midnight and 5 a.m. sort of thing, when the system has plenty of surplus load. So our view is, in the short and immediate term, we have no issues, no concerns whatsoever. The system is robust enough to handle it. If it ever got to a point where we did have the dream of 2024 where you would have multiple electric vehicles on a single feeder, the system, again, the technology is there. We can absolutely adapt to it. We're prepared, and obviously my engineers stay up at night thinking about these sorts of things, so I'm 1,000% comfortable we're ready for it.
All right, thank you. I don't wish them to stay up at night, but at least during the daytime to be putting their attention to that is much appreciated. Now, the flip side, of course, is that there's still, on the utility level, you are involved in growth in cleaner generation, which is fantastic. There's still pent-up demand. There are plenty of people who would love to be involved in generation, whether it's home rooftops or others. Anything that Hydro can do to reduce paperwork and the approvals and fees associated with that is always appreciated by those who want to do that. Is that something that I've raised this with you before? Has been any progress there?
There has been some progress. We've been able to do away with some of the insurance requirements, I think, that were causing some issues previously. That's been dealt with. It was part of our rate application, so there is certain costs embedded in installing solar, rooftop solar facilities. But quite frankly, I think the biggest barrier, if you will, to solar rooftop installation at the moment is the province has dramatically reduced the pricing available, so now you're effectively going to behind-the-meter pricing, which is effectively net metering, which is not the 80 or 90 cents it used to be. It's dramatically lower, so the payback on those installations is dramatically longer than it used to be. So, but as the province, again, embarks on its climate action plan, they very clearly have made a commitment to sort of household generating power, generating as much power as they're using. Again, our system is built to support it. We are happy to be an enabler of that sort of distributed generation fest.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Tymoshenko. Councillor Deans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. I just want to talk about the money a little bit. I just want to understand the dividend policy change that you are recommending. So, first off, in the report, you indicated that Hydro Ottawa Holdings, Inc. is projecting significant growth in net income from the 2016 to 2020. On what basis are you projecting that significant growth?
Growth is projected both on the distribution side, so the ratepayers, our investments that we make in the capital, as well as on our generating assets as they come online.
Okay, so if we were to leave the dividend policy as it is today, looking at that chart you put up a few minutes ago, it would appear that the city's dividend would be well over $20 million based on the current dividend policy and your projection of significant growth, right? Okay. I don't know if they heard that, but Mr. Conrad said that's correct. So I just want to understand what you're really asking for the change in the policy. So right now, target dividends at the greater of 60% of the net income of the corporation are $14 million. So you're willing to go basically to guarantee 20, which is probably guaranteed anyway, but the difference is that it's 60% of the annual net income of the regulated business. So, and I see that your credit rating's been downgraded and you're concerned about that, and I can understand why you'd be concerned about that. But I want to understand the impact on the dividend that the city receives from our investment in Hydro Ottawa by this change in policy. If we were to graph those two, what difference would it be? How much? I presume it's going to be less than we would have gotten under the old policy. So how much less?
That's a very good question, Councillor, and you are correct that if we did nothing and change this, the city would receive substantially more than the $20 million that we're showing you. One of the things and the biggest challenge that we faced, and if I could give you a single answer, I would. It's somewhat complex, and so bear with me as I cross a number of fields in this answer. First and foremost is, as chairman of the board and the board itself, representing you, the city, our fiduciary responsibility is to not only ensure that we stay in that bottom quartile up there of frequency and duration of outages, but to do so in a fiscally responsible manner. In the course of our shareholder agreement with the city and through the regulators, they require a debt-equity ratio that is critical to our go-forward. As I said earlier, our strategic plan calls for over $500 million in new capital infrastructure. For us to be able to raise that type of money puts our debt-to-equity ratio into jeopardy. And once that happens, it's not a good thing for Hydro Ottawa, and it's not a good thing for you, the shareholder. What happens is that with the dividend being paid to the city, as it is presently, we actually borrow the money, which doesn't really make sense, and it impacts our debt-to-equity ratio. By separating out the regulated part of the business from the unregulated, the generating part of our business, it allows us then to give more comfort, down the road to the regulators, to the bond issuers, which is critical to us, actually, Councillor. And secondly, it allows us in the non-regulated part of the business, which concerns them, to start to generate extra revenue that allows us to generate extra equity and allows us then to keep our debt-to-equity ratio, the banks and everybody else happy. If we were downgraded, if we continued on the same and continued to borrow to pay the excess dividends, in a very short period of time, the bond rating agencies would downgrade Hydro Ottawa to probably BBB. That would instantly trigger a $25 million extra payment that we would have to make to the independent energy or electric operator just to show them that we were financially solvent. It would not be a pretty picture. If I were you as a city councilor or any of you, I would call me up in the carbon instantly with Bryce and with Jeff, demand what the hell are we doing, and get rid of us as fast as you possibly could. And so that is the reason that, frankly,
we'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, thanks. So that is a very long-winded answer. The bottom line is, yes, you are correct. This is not, we sat down with the city manager, with the treasurer. This is not us trying to pull a fast one on the city. This is the city, Hydro Ottawa, ensuring that you, as our shareholder, have a very well-run company that's financially solvent, that keeps your customers in that bottom quartile, that little green, and at the same time allows us to continue to invest in infrastructure in a responsible way, continue to buy new generating stations if we can, etc. Jeff, Bryce, I don't know if it was a long-winded answer. If I missed something, please.
The only additional color I'd provide is that there are 75 plus electric distribution companies like ourselves in the province. All of them have a dividend policy that's either 50-50 or 60-40. We are unique in the sense that ours is on the holding company. Everybody else's is on the regulated assets as we're moving here today. So we're trying to move ourselves into that layer of predictability.
Okay, well, I appreciate the answer, but just to get to the heart of the matter, the question was how much projected income dividend income would we be foregoing?
There we are. In the next 5 years, very little extra that you wouldn't get already because the generating business is growing and SHOT is just coming on in 17. In the following 5 years projected out, and again, it would be in the vicinity of 35 million. It would eventually grow to over the next 15 years. I'll put an asterisk on that as well, that this is a 5-year plan. And we will be back in front of you with a strategic plan in front of the council of the day with our next strategic plan in 2020. And at that particular time, quite clearly, the dividend policy will be revisited and a whole series of things because, you know, Councillor Chernachenko talked about the green energy plan and the impact. The number of changes coming down the road for traditional old staid Hydro Ottawa energy, you know, is profound. And in the next 5 years, I think we will see some very major changes likely come our way, whether we can forecast them or not presently. So 5 years from now, we will revisit the dividend policy, but I can tell you with complete assurance that this is what we're doing today, short term, will have relatively little impact on what the city would get. Matter of fact, you're getting more. But secondly, and more importantly, it preserves the financial integrity of Hydro Ottawa with the bond rating agencies, with our banks, and with the OEB, and that's critical.
No, and I understand that. I think my next question is to Mr. Kandelakis, though, because he obviously was representing the shareholder. So how did we settle on $20 million as the baseline dividend?
Through the mayor, the issue that you know, when it came up before us, the issue was one of trying to balance the future sustainability of exactly what Mr. Durrell and Mr. Conrad were talking about, with the notion that you have to also look historically of the dividends we have been receiving, which have exceeded always the dividend policy, or generally have exceeded always, so we benefited from that. And we saw a significant bump this year to $20 million, which they've stated. So the principle that we accepted was that for them to stay in a solid financial position, the city would be best served by receiving $20 million or more, depending if they do better in terms of the incremental improvements we can have year for year, for that 5 years, because we're actually doing better than what our current dividend policy is to begin with the idea that after 5 years, the dividend policy will be reviewed by the shareholder as their situation changes. We understand the relief they need from the perspective of securing the bond rating agency's supports, and how that is so important to their business and the continuation of the growth that we're going to expect in the future. So when the Treasurer looked at it, and we looked at it from the perspective of what recommendation we would make, we've accepted the premise that $20 million is better than what we've been doing. We have consistency over the next years, and we can actually do better. And we have an opportunity to grow that after the next 5 years. So from a city viewpoint, we're in a great solid position. We need to keep them in solid position, and we'll grow together as we move forward.
Okay, and just one last question, I think, to Ms. Similek. Based on the current value of Hydro Ottawa Holdings, Inc., what would, if we assume the dividend will be $20 million, what would that rate of return be?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have the value in front of me. Actually, don't even have a calculator, but I can get that information to you very shortly.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Great, thank you. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning. And thank you, gentlemen, for the report this morning and your efforts at Hydro Ottawa. I do want to state that I support the governance and team at Hydro Ottawa, and I'm generally satisfied with the direction that things are going. And Mr. Durrell, I wanted to thank you for recognizing and acknowledging that one of the main questions I'm sure you hear, and certainly my residents here, is the recognition that this public utility does generate a profit, and some people question why so much of that is being generated, and why not return some of that back to the customers. But you have acknowledged that, and I want to appreciate and thank you for that. Can you just paint a brief picture over the next few years, when you take into account some of the direction that both the provincial and federal governments are going, what can the customer expect with respect to rates? Not just challenges that Hydro Ottawa may be facing, but any known additional expectations or regulations that those two bodies may be enforcing going forward. What can we tell a Hydro Ottawa customer to expect with the price of electricity going forward?
The OEB, Councillor, has approved a plan, and I would say that in the next 5 years they will see an average increase of about 2.6% a year. And that's obviously a little more in some year and a little less in others, but over a 5-year period, an average is a worthwhile thing mentioning and talking about. So that's what they can expect. It's been approved by the OEB, and so we operate accordingly.
Has Hydro Ottawa ever considered issuing a dividend directly back to the customer in years where your net profit may have exceeded expectations? Has that ever been considered, rather than monkeying around with the actual price, which is difficult, hard to budget, hard to predict going forward? If you do generate $32 million in net income, have you, as a board, considered issuing money back to the customer at some point?
It's a good question. First of all, we do in many respects. Hydro Ottawa is one of the most highly recognized corporate citizens in Ottawa and across the country. And if you'll look in the annual report, which I know you will have seen the number of awards that have been won by Hydro Ottawa. The money that we have given back, for instance, when our e-billing was introduced, with our e-billing, it was obviously financially was very beneficial to us. But to encourage people to do that, we contributed to, in this case, we handed over a check for $94,000 to the Max Keeping Foundation and Fund Achieve. We raise over $250,000 annually for United Way. And what we do with the Boys and Girls Club and Christie Lake and on and on and on. And that's, to me, the best way that we can return monies to our citizens by being a good corporate citizen. The rest of it, quite frankly, is, as I said, we pay our dividends out of borrowing, and we have to get our debt equity ratio into effect, and we have to invest that $500 million in the next 5 years in ensuring that our tree maintenance policies are good, so you're not losing hydro when there's a storm, and all of those other things. And the bottom line is, I think the average customer, when I turn my lights on in the morning or my coffee maker, I want them to work. All the rest of it is icing on the cake, and I want them to work for an affordable and reasonable amount. And I'm satisfied as a customer and as the chairman of the board that we do that.
Good. I appreciate your presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Leeper, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Very briefly, and to the Treasurer, I am pleased to see the change in the dividend policy. Consistently exceeding projections from a financial planning standpoint can be just as problematic as consistently missing them. I just want to find out from the Treasurer whether that new dividend level with that higher floor is going to be baked into the city's budget assumptions, and whether you're comfortable that that doesn't pose any risks on our side with respect to the certainty of our revenues moving forward.
Mr. Mayor, this actually helps because we've had to rely on a policy that said 14 million, and even though we've always gotten more than that, we've been very reluctant to increase it to reflect what the actual is. Now that the policy will say 20 million, we will be able to adjust that account in the budget, increase it, and know that those revenues are coming in. So it is actually advantageous for the city. And with respect to Councillor Deans's question, the answer is 4.8% is the return.
And you're comfortable that the new $20 million dividend, we can count on that and take it to the bank for the foreseeable future?
I believe the dividend policy says they have to pay us the lesser of 20 million or the greater of either 20 million or 60% of their returned earnings. So if they earn enough that generates a 21 million, we'll get 21 million. But as a minimum, they have to pay us 20 million.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Leeper. Councillor Hughley, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just want to speak from my ward was one of the wards that back in 2010 was suffering a lot from outages and what was bordering on unreliable service. And so today I want to take the opportunity to thank Bryce and his people because, knock on wood, but we don't have those problems anymore. They've done a lot to fix and stabilize the service, as Mr. Durrell was talking about. And I just want to take this quick opportunity to say thank you for that. And hopefully you can keep up that investment in the system. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That's very good feedback, Councillor. Councillor El Shantiri, please.
Just a quick question. First of all, thank you for your presentation, and I think we should apologize for making money. It's great to hear something makes us money. We had a meeting. I don't know, folks, this is not for you, but just to confirm the answer from you. So we had a meeting with the Hydro One Ombudsman, and in a discussion, our resident asked a question. Because we know negotiations fail and it's not going to happen. The question was, can a government or future government order Hydro One to transfer the utility to Hydro Ottawa? And who will compensate that? does that mean the government will have to? I mean, I just want to know what is the answer to this, because if there's 1% hope, let's keep our resident hoping for. If there's no percentage of hope, let's be honest about it, I think, because some people playing this as a political game with people's emotion here.
Thank you, Councillor, and you are correct, and I think the councillors who were involved with Hydro One recognize the extensive work that we did, Bryce and myself and a few others, working with Hydro One to try and bring everybody into our tent. The bottom line is the OEB, the Ontario Energy Board, was created not to so much bother Hydro Ottawa or the other LDCs, but to protect the citizens of Ontario from, I guess, poorly run hydro operations. If I could use a better word than that, I don't know what it is. But as a result of that, they, on any transaction, would look at the deal and say, if Hydro One were to, in their magnanimous private sector position, say, you know what, we feel badly for the people, you can buy them at a reduced rate, the OEB wouldn't approve that. They would say that was to the detriment of the other Hydro One customers who are out there. And I do not know of a government today that's going to overrule a regulator. It's a little like the government telling the judge, I want you to come down with this opinion. What the hell is a judge there for? You know, and so the OEB is put there to protect you and me as customers against LDCs like Hydro Ottawa doing something nefarious or doing something behind the scenes, in theory to help people, yes, but at the expense of others. And so would any government do it? I don't know. But to do so and fly in the face of a regulator who you've appointed to oversee every resident of Ontario, I can't imagine any politician. I sure wouldn't do it. And you know, I would say to the LDCs, and work out your own problems. So the bottom line is, could they do it? Sure, governments have the ultimate power to do anything. Would they do it and fly in the face of the regulator? It would be a terrible, terrible, terrible decision, and would set a precedent that I don't think any government would frankly do.
Thank you for that, and probably with the fact 60% now of Hydro One in a private ownership, I think compensation will have to take place. Doesn't matter who make the decision.
That's right.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. So we have before us a number of recommendations as the shareholder on the report as presented. Carried. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Appreciate it. Next is OC Transport Fare System restructuring to coordinate with the O-Train, Confederation Line, and multimodal operations. We have 3 recommendations, and then Councillor Nussbaum has an addition he would like to bring forward at this time. Councillor Nussbaum, seconded by Councillor Leeper.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we had a very comprehensive and useful discussion on the on a series of recommendations, including the proposed revised fare table last week at the Commission, and the Commission voted to refer one of the items that I put forward there to Council, so that's why this is before Council now. And let me start by saying that staff have done an extraordinary job bringing all of this information to the Commission and to Council, which I very much appreciate, and there's some fantastic work in there. So I think it's important to note that there has been some fantastic work done. The one concern that I expressed last week, and which is sort of behind the motion, is that the proposal to sort of merge the express and the regular monthly pass with an implementation date of January 1st, 2017 was problematic in my mind. And let me just briefly outline why I felt this was problematic. So essentially right now we have 38,000 regular monthly pass holders, and the way the fare structure was proposing that the elimination of the express service would affect them, on January 1st, 2017 would be such that between the June 2016 monthly pass and the January 2017 pass, those folks, those 38,000 loyal customers, would see a price increase of 10% in the monthly pass in just 7 months. So again, if you compare the price of a June 2016 pass compared to the proposed January 2017 pass, assuming a 1.25% inflationary increase, we're talking about a 10% increase in just 7 months. And I'm quite worried about the consequence of that on a number of different fronts. Obviously, ridership. And what was interesting is at the same meeting, we heard the results of some consultation which was done with an expert on elasticity, who recommended that OC Transpo use the number of negative 0.036 to anticipate the impact of each 1% fare above inflation on ridership. So crunching those numbers and assuming a conservative assumption of a fare increase based on the proposal that equals about 4 to 5% above inflation, we arrive using this expert's numbers at an estimated loss of somewhere between 600 and 700 monthly regular pass holders of our 38,000. Now, 600 and 700 regular monthly pass holders may not sound like a lot, but that translates into somewhere around 250 or 300,000 passenger trips, and probably in the range of $750,000 in fare revenue. So again, the reason why we were struggling with this and why I was struggling with this is a 10% increase over 7 months in the cost of a fare, a loss of 600 and 700 regular monthly pass holders, and at least some $750,000 lost in annual revenue. Now, separately, we heard that there are issues with the express routes, and I think the argument made last week was these are problems that exist now, and one of the rationales for ending the price premium was to address the fact that the express routes have, as the argument goes, lost some of their distinctive value. And I'm not here to dispute that argument. If that's the case, that's fine. But I would say that the problem of our express routes between now and 2018 is not a problem that ought to be borne by our regular monthly passengers. If this is an irritant, and if this is something that we've known about for some time, I mean, it probably should have been raised in the context of the budget last year. But I think we've got an opportunity in the lead up to Budget 2017 to see if we can fix that problem. So again, I'm not necessarily against ending the express fare sooner rather than later, but the point is I don't think on January 1st, 2017, on the shoulders of the regular monthly pass holders makes a lot of sense, given that the value proposition of the LRT isn't going to be apparent to them for another 18 months. You know, I guess I would be comfortable or more comfortable saying, look, this is going to happen in 2018, but this year you're going to see the value of the LRT system, and for that reason the increased fare could be justified. But I think the 18-month issue is a problem. And again, I'm not arguing we shouldn't solve the express fare problem, but I really think we shouldn't do that on the backs of our most loyal and important customers. So that's the nature of the motion. I would hope that if this were to pass, we could still find an opportunity in the budget 2017 to see if we can address the express fare issue, and if that means we can eliminate them sooner rather than later, I would absolutely have no problem with that. So there's a bit of an introduction to the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wilkinson on the whole report.
And it's on the motion. Do you want to do that later?
Well, we're dealing with everything at once, as we always do, so either one you can talk on.
Well, I'll talk on this motion, Mr. Chair, particularly. I think, like staff...
Speak up a little more, Councillor.
Yeah, I'd like to ask staff just to go over some of the things they did at the commission meeting about why, in fact, people are paying express fares, but they do not get express service. Their service is the same as those who don't pay express service, and therefore, for years and years, because this has happened for some years ago, people have been paying more than they actually should have. I think if staff would explain that first, it would help in what I want to say further.
Especially on the way home.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask Mr. Scrimgeour to explain the erosion of the express premium benefits.
Especially on the way home.
Thanks, John. Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, some of the changes that have occurred over the
30 years since the Transitway has been built, as the Transitway has been expanded into new areas, and as rapid transit service using the Transitway has been greatly expanded into suburban and other areas of the city. Some of the things that have changed are that the express route is no longer the only service that provides the transfer-free service to downtown. The rapid transit service also does that. The limited stop service that the express routes provided historically is also provided by the Transitway routes. The express routes are no longer consistently available in all suburban areas because some newer suburban areas we have not been able to add express service because of our capacity constraints downtown. There's no longer a guaranteed seat on express routes as there was when high-floor buses were used. There's no longer the exclusion of all low-fare customers because we've allowed, with the introduction of the Community Pass and then with the U-Pass, all customers in those customer groups and fare types to use express routes. And the justification or the premise on which the original premium was charged was to account for the higher costs of providing that distinctive service. With the service no longer being distinct, the costs, the operating costs per customer are no longer higher for those routes than they are for other routes that cover the same sort of distance.
Thank you for that. The other aspect is, what concerns me is we have a new park and ride opening this late at the end of this year, and the whole premises, I believe, on how you want to adjust routes to be able to serve that at this time when we don't have extra buses and it is very difficult to get changes in service, require that there be a sort of fluid between express and non-express routes, that they be all the same in how they operate, and that if we don't put them together, then it jeopardizes the plans that you're doing to actually service that park and ride and have people use it and then take away the pressure from other park and rides which are overextended right now.
Mr. Mayor, yes, in Canada North and in other areas of the city, we may have the opportunity, and in this case we do have the opportunity, to provide more frequent service and more convenient service for people as those area grows, when we can combine the resources from the express fare routes and from the regular fare routes. For previous park and rides, we had additional resources that we could allocate to providing the new service from there. With the new innovation station and park and ride opening and our constrained resource availability, there isn't the opportunity to operate new service, so the way we can provide the best service to customers there and in other parts of the city over the next couple of years will be to combine the resources. And of course that's only possible when the fare distinction is removed.
And that the importance of getting more service and having an improved, Mr. Mayor, was brought home again to me on Tuesday when I had an email from a meeting held in HR professionals in the Canada North Business Park who said they are unable to hire young people because they can't get to work because we don't have service. And much of that area we've been able to get some rush hour service in there, but it's not adequate enough, and it doesn't happen all day long. I think I also the council be aware the motion is to take away words that say the removal of premium fares for express routes. The report does not indicate what they would pay in January. That will be done at budget time this year. And if the increase is considered to be wrong, then the adjustment on the fare table, which we have not yet approved for 2017, can be made in different ways to help to not have quite as much of an increase in one particular fare group. But it's simply unfair to keep people paying an extra roughly 15 to 20% more for service they're really not getting. And so I think it's really important that we give OC Transpo the ability to improve our bus service the way that there's moving forward, so it will work well when we open the LRT, and that if we have a problem with the fares, work on those over the summer and come back at budget time and see if there's some ways we can work to make those work a little better. And that's not part of this recommendation at all. It's something that we'll be dealing with in the fall. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, that's well said. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fleury, s'il vous plaît.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think there's very positive news in the report that need to be highlighted, and then I do have questions and comments for the review. I think that one of the really great things that we have is the multi-day pass that's presented. I'm looking forward to see the amount that will be. But I think as a capital city, a city that prides itself on being green, on having good transit, that multi-day pass will be really well received. Hopefully we can do it like certain jurisdictions, like in Rome, where we can work right through the hotels, and as soon as the first tap comes in, that's the start time. Hopefully we get to have that level. I'm a bit concerned by some of the changes. I'd like to say that the conversation specifically to the express routes are, in my mind, we have a new system starting in 2018 when the LRT kicks in. So let's make sure that we're ready for it. And I think that it's fair to say that the customers that are using the express routes will have a different experience at that time. I also want to thank Mr. Manconi for his memo, specifically for the ramp up, for us to understand the complexity of making sure we're ready for the start date of LRT. I think that's an important understanding beyond the fees and the rates, that there's the entire back system needs to be ready so that not only the customer experience in terms of the look and feel of stations, the service, but also that payment can all be seamless. Where I'm concerned are a few elements. One, I'm concerned that we currently have Wednesday free seniors, which are well received. Our seniors are using them. We keep getting very positive feedback on that. But at the same time, when I see the rates, the table fare, I see no increase in the senior portion. I recognize it's a smaller pool. I think it's around 7,000 passes. But I think that sends the wrong message, because we're increasing all the others. And we're saying, well, wait a minute, there's a Wednesday for free, which is great. Let's not touch that. But why don't we have an increment in the seniors portion? Mr. Manconi, is it possible to understand where that came about?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. You have an older adult plan that has consistently reminded us to apply the lens, the equity inclusion lens, on seniors. And the free Wednesday is there. It's an attractive offering, and this rate that applies to the customer uptake on our deck is about 7,000 seniors. You'll recall that when you did your last fare table adjustment, you did take away from the seniors the free Friday morning. So from my perspective, the seniors have contributed at this point. My recommendation is on the seniors piece, if down the road you want to look at some incremental changes, you do it in that context. But we're aligning ourselves to the overarching objectives of your strategic priorities of being an all-inclusive city. And the seniors community, which we had really good dialogue the last time we talked about this, they contributed both in the Presto rollout, adjustment of the fares, and the elimination of a Friday benefit that they had.
So now I have two questions, and those relate to what I believe is the biggest pot of user, which is the adult pass and the cash payment. I'll start with the cash payment. So I've said this during the Uber debate, and I'm sorry to bring this back up to the table, but if any of you have used Uber, it's very affordable. And I think that at the price point we're putting that cash payment, there's a big risk that dwellers that live 10 blocks from where they're going are going to make that decision, and that will impact. The entire algorithm works on increase in users, or at least maintaining the amount of users. Is that correct, Mr. Manconi?
We want to attract and retain as many users as possible and grow, yes.
So I'm concerned that if our fees are just out at a point where we're at risk, we might lose ridership, and then that also plays with the fee table. So what I would like us to look at is, if we were to, the price point at $330 is something I'm comfortable with, and also the annual regular fee. I'd like us to promote a yearly user. Let's say you're a regular adult and you use the bus 10 months of the year. We should have an incentive for you to use it 12 months of the year and not have that monthly impact portion. So I'd like to, Mr. Manconi, I know that we sort of talked about this briefly, but I'd like to understand how you see the impact on ridership if we were to install a yearly adult pass, which would discount, obviously, some of the months, but overall would give us the gains if we say that an average user uses the bus for 10 months of the year. Why wouldn't we do the algorithm and try to keep that user year-round?
Mr. Mayor, you used to have an adult yearly pass. You got rid of that in, I believe it was 2011. You used to have what was called an eco-pass. You used to have a bunch of other subsidies on top of subsidies, and you wanted a transit system that was financially sustainable. You wanted to make sure that the long-range transit affordability plan was there. So, we did a good job last time of eliminating subsidies on top of subsidies, and here you're again looking at all the right pieces in terms of the affordability envelope. I will say this. Riders do the math. They do figure out what their options and scenarios are. When you rolled out Presto, you gave them very big incentives, and there are people that set it and forget it in terms of an auto reload, or they do the math as to when they're off on holidays, and that's when we talked about the EcoPass holders. When we eliminated that, there was a bit of concern from them, and we said it's very, very simple. You can do your monthly pass, and if you're off on holidays in July for a couple of months, you can go to a Presto tap process for that month. So we know that your customers do that math, and they look for the various options and scenarios that best fits their travel patterns and also their affordability views.
I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the same thing you are. I think we're in the game of increasing riders, of creating that experience that's affordable. And I think that keeping it month by month might actually hurt us in the overall usage, because if we were to create a small incentive, that same user might, instead of using the pass for 8 months or renew it for 10 months, would then extend it for the 12-month period and bite the bullet on that price, and then we could see increase in ridership. I'm not trying to increase a subsidy. I'm trying to find a way to increase ridership, and I think the biggest rider pool we have is in the adult pass. And as part of these changes, those are the ones that are most impacted. So I'm concerned that we're going to see a decline in ridership because, I'll highlight a personal experience. I have friends that live out.
If you could wrap it up, please.
I was just going to say that we're making tough decisions because it's not we're not holistic about the matter. We talked about in the past the cost of parking downtown actually has an impact on ridership. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Aguilar, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm concerned that the debate so far is losing the focus of why we're doing this. I'm seeing urban and core versus suburban and rural. I'm seeing discussions about express riders versus regular riders. That's really not what this is about. This is about being ready for the opening and the launch of the single biggest infrastructure project we've had in the City of Ottawa. It's about being ready for the LRT. We've talked about nothing but in the last 6 years accounts, whether it's at Transportation Committee, whether it's at FEDCO, whether it's at Full Council or Transit, it's the single biggest project. We can't afford to have it fail. The memo that Mr. Manconi and his team prepared after the Transit Commission meeting, responding to the concerns raised by Councillor Nussbaum, I think is very helpful in making that point very, very clear. This is about being able to ramp up properly for the launch of LRT. And nobody around here is going to say that it's not going to cost more money for certain riders. It is going to cost more money for certain riders. But it is about the benefit for the whole city. It's about, we've talked about any number of reasons why LRT is going to be positive for the city, from reducing greenhouse gases to reducing congestion to making the ride better and more efficient and more comfortable for our users, for attracting more tourism, and it goes on and on and on. That's what this is about. That's what the recommendation is about. We picked Mr. Manconi and his team to lead us through this transition. We made a very conscious decision to allow him to do that, to advise us how this is to go forward. And that's what he's doing. I appreciate some people around the horseshoe here may not like the recommendation that he's making, but I believe that he's making that recommendation and his team is making the recommendation in what they consider to be the best approach to make sure come 2018 that this project works. Everybody has had the experience around Christmas time or knows someone around Christmas time. You're very busy, you're running around, you go out and you buy the presents for the kids. It's late Christmas Eve, you sit down, you open the box, you try and build the toy for your kid to open on Christmas morning, and guess what? It's 2 o'clock Christmas morning and you're missing a part. Or the instructions aren't there, or you don't have the batteries. And then what happens on Christmas morning is you've got a crying child because they didn't get what they expected to get, or a frustrated spouse, or whatever. I don't want us to have that kind of a Christmas morning for our LRT. I want our LRT to be ready, and the only way we're going to be ready is if we give John and his team the appropriate ramp-up time that they need to make sure that the fare structure is in place, that the transfer points are working, that the technology that we're going to need to use is going to work, that people understand what the new fare structure is, how the signage works, and everything else. That's what this motion is about. It's about giving them the lead time that they need to make this project a success. And I think one thing that we can agree upon around this horseshoe is that nobody here wants the launch of the LRT to be a failure. And I think in order to give the support to our team that they're asking for and that they need to make this a proper and successful completion of, again, the largest infrastructure project we have ever done in the history of the city, is to support the recommendations that he's giving. And yes, there will be some short-term pain in that, but there will be very positive long-term gain. So we asked him to lead us through this transition. We said, we think you can do it. Let's support John Nanconi and his team in going forward, and Chair Blais, in going forward in making this transition successful for all the residents of the City of Ottawa. And so I will be definitely supporting these recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKenney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify before I begin. If we adopt your recommendation, the first one, the adoption of a new fare structure as outlined in this report and illustrated in document 1 on January 1st, you will be basing that, all of your plans on those numbers in document 1, I take it?
That's correct.
Okay. So then we do know that if you are one of the 38,000 adult pass holders, and let's just put aside for now the fact that, you know, it does cost more to move somebody further than, say, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers than it does to move somebody 10 blocks. And let's just put aside for a moment the fact that it does. I could ask you that. Does it cost more to move somebody 20 kilometers than it does to move somebody half a kilometer?
It can.
Thank you. So let's just put that aside, and let's just put aside the fact that construction is affecting residents across the city. I think that we could probably all agree on that. What we're asking the 38,000 regular adult pass holders to do is to pay for 18 months $6 more. So I'm not a mathematician, but that's just over $100, $104. Many of these 38,000 are part-time workers. I would say that low-income residents who we're actually trying to find a solution with the community pass for fall into that number of 38,000. So those folks, we're asking them today to pay $104 extra over the next 18 months. Is that accurate?
I don't agree with the comments. I think there's selective pieces you're picking out of the report, and to be frank, Councillor, I'd comment back. If you want, I can do it now, or I can hold at the end.
No, go ahead.
So you mentioned cash fare. We've reduced the cash fare for, or you've mentioned low-income people. One of the things we heard over and over and over again from many councillors and the public is do something with your cash fare so that we do create the opportunity that you're talking about. And by approving the report, you're doing exactly that. Cash fares are going down from $5.15 to $3.35, $3.65 down to $35, and so forth. So we are reducing the cash fare for those people that do have limited incomes and so forth. That's something we've heard in the last couple of years. And I could go on and on with the other pieces, the top up, many of the things I've highlighted in the memo.
But this fact is we've got 38,000 regular adult pass holders who are being asked for 18 months without any changes to pay $6 a month more for their pass. I'm not, I'll just leave it at that. I'm not able to support that. I'm not able to explain to those residents why today, I'm not talking about in 18 months from now, but I'm not able to explain to those 38,000 residents why today they should be paying $6 a month more than other transit riders, why their increase is going up, and why $104 is coming out of their pocket. So for that reason, I'm not going to be able to support the recommendation. I will be supporting the motion from Councillor Nussbaum. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Manconi, do you want to answer? Because I'd like to hear the answer.
Mr. Mayor, what they will get is part of a city building project, and they'll also get an immediate benefit that they'll be able to ride any bus anywhere in the city at one rate, which they cannot do right now.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Nussbaum specifically said that he was not here to challenge the assertion that there is no value in the express bus. I will. The express bus, the express routes are door-to-door. They are dependable. They are transfer-free from the suburbs to downtown. They are a significant improvement over taking a local bus to the closest transitway stop and coming in. They still have value. The notion that deferring the collapse of the fare classes until 2018 is going to create risk is not one that in the memo that you saw sent to us recently that I saw adequately explained. I didn't see any quantification of the risk. I didn't see any technical details of what would be required in order to accomplish that in the switchover. What you're asking us to do is for the next year and a half is to have those express riders who are still getting the benefit of those very beneficial routes door-to-door downtown pay us, receive a subsidy of roughly $3 million or so a year that is coming from the monthly pass holders. And that is doubly problematic for me since we have not been able to find, for reasons I think we all around this table understand, have not been able to create a low-income transit pass. The 10% increase in fares that Councillor Nussbaum has referred to is not going to fall on the backs of those who can best afford them, but on those who can least afford it. Without more details as to why this deferral that Councillor Nussbaum's motion is suggesting is so problematic, I tend to trust that if we mandate OC Transpo to accomplish a phased approach to the collapsing of the fare classes in 2018, that you will be able to handle it. I believe that if this council mandates you to hold off the collapse of the fare increases until 2018, that you will be able to do so in a way that works for the residents of Ottawa. Pending any evidence otherwise, I am more than happy to suggest, or more than happy to support Councillor Nussbaum's motion. And I hope that the rest of Council will as well. A $3 million subsidy from regular monthly pass holders to the express riders receiving no additional service is just not acceptable. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Deans, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question to you, Mr. Manconi, is about the Presto card system, and there was a request from Presto to have a different pay structure with the City of Ottawa for the services, and I understand that because I know we're probably underpaying. But having said that, have we negotiated a new payment?
Mr. Mayor, both myself and the city manager are involved in negotiations with Metrolinx. We've started our negotiations.
So presumably it's several $1 million?
It's too early to tell. What they've signaled to us is there is an increase coming, and we're having very good dialogue with them in terms of the Ottawa model. We're fortunate in that we have a very good system, and what you've decided on as a council with the Fairgate system is could lead to some efficiencies that Metrolinx is now being apprised of. So we're having good discussions, and it's just too early to say what the order of magnitude would be.
So the reason I ask is, have we rolled in a number that we presume to be paying into this new fare structure?
Yes, we have. The Treasurer and I have been very carefully in the last number of years ensuring that we're keeping the transit affordability whole, and that any known risks or costs that could come up, we've plugged in some numbers.
Okay. I won't ask you what they are. I get that. So I had to disagree with my colleague here who said this is all about the introduction of LRT and being ready in 2018. And, of course, that's a huge consideration. We do need to be ready in 2018. But it's not just about that. Anytime you have a major change in your fare structure, it also has to be about fairness in the system. And it has to be after considerable consultation with the public and consideration of the options. So I've been looking at Metrolinx and the work they've been doing, and TransLink in Vancouver and the work they've been doing, and they have gone through a comprehensive analysis, and they've looked at all kinds of different structures which they have tested with the public, and, they've boiled it down to basically there are 4 options that one can consider. Flat fares, which is effectively the option that we have. Fares by mode, different fares for example, train or bus or what have you. Fares by distance, based on distance traveled, which is an interesting concept in a city with as much geography as we have. And fares by zone, which are a simplified fare by distance. And they are giving huge amount of consideration to all of those, and they've certainly noted in the work that they do that most cities around the world have some form of different fares based on distance or zone or whatever. It's not very many that just have a simplified fare structure, which is being put in front of us now. So, I guess for me, the question really boils down to, have we done the analysis? Have we done the focus groups? Have we done the public consultation? And have we ensured that there's really fairness in this new system?
Mr. Mayor, a couple of comments on that. On the work that Metrolinx and TransLink are doing, the fare by distance and options and policy stuff, that is very good work. You made that decision many, many years ago when you proceeded with the LRT. Fare by distance is not an option that's on the table. You approved the design of the LRT system. You subsequently approved the Fairgate process and so forth. So that decision has gone past us many, many years ago. What's somewhat different...
Can you just explain it, Mr. Manconi? Because I don't quite follow the conclusion.
The design of the platforms, the hallways, the corridors, the entire configuration of the stations are not designed for fare-by-zone infrastructure, and your bus systems and the stations. You were either going to go proof of purchase or fare gates. And we brought a report to you a few years ago, last term of council, and you approved fare gates. So you can't do fare by zone. That has, on the LRT, that ship has sailed. So what Metrolinx and what TransLink are doing is they have integrated systems that they need to connect the dots on. They've got the GO Transit, commuter rail, they've got in the GTH area, they've got 8 or 9 jurisdictions. They're trying to get them onto common fare points. They have not integrated their Presto like you've done with STO. They actually talked to us about the work we've done with fare integration with STO, and the consultation, the dialogue that you talked about is what you did last term of council when you adopted the fare table with the Presto, with all the alignment. You remember those numerous meetings we had in terms of that fare table and discussion with people like the seniors group and so forth. And then everyone else in Canada is on a flat rate. So nobody else is doing fare by distance. And quite frankly, those that have it, i.e. Vancouver on the bus side, have eliminated it because of the problems for the customer interface and the infrastructure when they introduced their smart card. And TransLink is now looking at whether they should eliminate fare by distance for their rail system also.
So did we do focus group testing?
Mr. Dan Burrell, who you know, did focus testing, focus group discussion on the fare table that's before you at the conceptual level early on in the process to talk about the LRT transformation, to talk about this issue of consolidating the 2 adult passes.
And what was the conclusion of that?
Many people understood that it needed to be done. They understood the complexity of making sure that everything's aligned, because we also at the time talked to them about the wayfinding and the other elements of the reports that were at the last commission meeting, and there was mixed reaction as to the timing.
Okay, I pulled out a report that I had, I think from the time that I was the chair of the Transit Commission back in 2012 from Core Strategies, and at the time they had done some focus group testing on this very concept. And here's the conclusion. This is from 2012, but the conclusion then was the one concept respondents could never fathom was any scenario where new fares would indiscriminately charge a greater share of the fare to those who use the system for less distance, cost, and in brackets urban, versus those who use the system for greater cost, suburban. And it goes on to say that there's a concern about pitting urban versus suburban riders if you're actually transferring the cost to those who are going to make up the difference for longer fares. So just wonder what your reaction to this, if that's what the public was saying in 2012, they could never fathom us doing that. Have we thought about that?
Absolutely. One of the projects getting ready for On Track 2018 is we did journey mapping. So we have spent the last year and a half assembling customer groups and taking them through the current state, the 2012 view that you just talked about, and the future state of LRT. And what is amazing about that is we found out over a year and a half ago that our customers truly didn't know what LRT was bringing to them. And once they understood what LRT was bringing to them, how the system is going to work, the 2 things that are very, very important to them, reliability and the frequency of service and so forth, the discussion started to change completely into a value proposition of we did not know this is all coming. This is exciting. This is transformational. This is a more reliable transit system. And they start to have a different conversation. So that view that you have there, I'm very familiar with that report, was a snapshot in 2012 when we were just starting the LRT. Now those focus group that some members of our Transit Commission have participated in, they have a better understanding, and the dialogue is different than what we were seeing in 2012. They talk more about the value proposition on reliability and service frequency.
There's results of the focus group testing on this topic available to us. Can we take a look at those?
We have a summary from Dan, yes, and we can certainly share that with you.
Okay, I'd like to see that. My last question is around the impact on ridership, because I do worry that with such a significant increase to our bread and butter customers so far out from the change that it will adversely impact our ridership. And I just wonder what studies have been completed to indicate what impact this is going to have.
One of the other councillors talked about the 0.3 3.6 elasticity that our independent reviewer did on our forecasting, I would suggest to you that we as staff would not recommend you apply that indice because there's too many other variables at play. If it was a fare increase in isolation, you could apply that. When you layer on the transformation that you're doing, many of the things I just talked about in terms of the benefits of LRT, I would struggle to find anyone on staff and externally that could give you an accurate forecast as to what this fare table recommendation would do when you layer on all the other things that you're introducing in this massive transformation. So there's a lot of levers that would push and pull, Councillor, so I cannot give you a definite answer on what would happen to ridership. I know what we're forecasting, and what we're forecasting in 2018 is an increase of 1%, and in 2019 an increase of 2%. That's what's in the current affordability model.
Do you have a forecast for 2017 based on this new fare table?
The 2017 forecast, we're going to stay flat in terms of current ridership, and as we reported at the Transit Commission, we've got the highest ridership increase since 2014, so we're 0.6% up. So hopefully the drop is now done, and we're in a steady state.
So, just hypothetically speaking, if we implement these changes and we see a significant dip beyond the flat line that you're currently projecting in ridership, would you come back to us with some suggested changes?
You're going to have to see the rollout of the LRT and see what that does. Things could go up, things could go down. There's other things. If you look at the report and the RSG study that we sent out with my memo, there are many, many factors that used to affect ridership, and there's many new factors that affect ridership. So we would certainly look at it, and happy to talk about scenarios that we'd have to do. But again, I emphasize the transit affordability plan, which is a critical component to your strategic agenda that's forthcoming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nussbaum, to wrap up your motion.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'd start by saying the one thing I can't agree with Councillor Eglay on is that we all do want the same thing around this table, a robust, successful transit system with growing ridership. I think the question is, how do we get there? I've posited that losing 600 to 700 monthly pass holders is something that we cannot afford to do at this stage. And it's important to note that those numbers are arrived at using the consultant's figures that OC Transpo staff have asked to give them the elasticity number. He gave it to them. That's the number applied to the increases over inflation that we would see on January 1st, 2017. I think we need to do what we can to stabilize ridership. And the other thing that came out in the report last week is that we know that decreasing fares will not bring back riders, according to the same experts. So if we find ourselves in the conundrum of having lost riders, it's going to be difficult to get them back. Now, if we can hold on to these folks until mid-2018, then I think we're in excellent shape, because we know we're going to get expected increases in comfort and convenience at that time. So really our job, in my mind, is to hold on to our riders between now and the summer of 2018, and then hopefully see some growth. So for that reason, I do think we need to do something about this fare table. I've put forward the idea of holding off for now and agreeing to the phase of the express routes in order to find a solution to that problem that doesn't have the regular monthly pass holders bearing the brunt, which is going to lead to the losses I've already identified. That said, I'm certainly open to seeing how we can solve the problem of the express routes in the context of our upcoming budget. And if we find one that works, that equitably distributes the cost of eliminating the express routes 18 months before the LRT comes online, I would absolutely be open to supporting such a solution for a January 1st, 2017 implementation date. But what I'm positing through this motion is we can't send out a signal now that we're going to expect our regular monthly pass holders to endure a 10% increase in the price of the monthly pass between June 2016 and January 2017. So that's my wrap-up, and thanks for the, I think, important and robust conversation.
Great. So on the main report, Councillor Blake, and Transit Chair to wrap up, please. Councillor Blake.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This has certainly been an interesting discussion this morning and frankly for the last year and a half. Since the term of council began, we've been working to implement much of the change residents and their representatives in this place have been asking for at OC Transpo. In 2015, we implemented $1 million in new service improvements, notably on Bank Street, with shorter waiting times and increased capacity for Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. We provided new transit access in the Hunt Club area. We budgeted to provide an additional 5,700 trips on Paratranspo. We improved the service on the O-Train Trillium line, leading to a 23% increase in ridership. The first of our new double-deckers arrived, all equipped with CCTV cameras to make our system safer and passenger counters to help us plan the best possible network. The leadership team at OC Transpo has planned and implemented the first bus transitway conversion to light rail in North America. Tens of thousands of daily trips affected. Doom and gloom predicted by many around this table. And what was the result? Near perfection. Certainly there were some speed bumps along the way, but even the harshest critics have complimented the team on how well it's gone. There were predictions of low ridership, I recall as well, from the same people who are predicting low ridership today. In fact, for 2016, ridership is up 0.6%. And our 12-month ridership levels of 97.2 million are the highest they've been since January of 2014, essentially when our new council took office. We look at Calgary, reported in the Calgary Herald May 16th of this year, their ridership is down 4.8%. Reported in the Toronto Star, the TTC has a $30 million deficit awaiting them this year. I think we should be complimenting our management team at OC Transpo for doing a very, very good job. During the 2016 budget, we heard a number of concerns about fares, particularly from our most vulnerable in the community. With the support of the Mayor and Transit Commission members, we set out to address these concerns. We heard that cash fares were too high. This recommendation reduces the cash fare. We heard ODSP recipients and seniors could not afford the same increases as others. This recommendation keeps both those rates the same. We heard that parents were having a tough time bringing their kids on the bus. This recommendation reduces the child's fare. We heard that youth in our community who were undecided about their future or pursuing a non-academic path were being discriminated against with high fare prices. This report recommends bringing 1,400 more young people into the youth discount category. We heard for years from residents on ODSP, arguably amongst the most vulnerable citizens in our city, that paying more or topping up to use Paratranspo was a burden they could not bear. After years of hearing this concern, this recommendation eliminates the top-up. All of these measures are being done within the long-term financial framework for transit, which makes both Stage 1 and Stage 2 of the Confederation Line viable. Implementing the Confederation Line and transitioning to a multimodal operation is arguably the most important issue facing our city. There are huge risks that the management team at OC Transpo and departments across the corporation have been working to mitigate. Today's recommendations are a critical part of that work. It informs the timeline and facilitates the transition to ensure that 2018 goes as well as we all want it to and as well as we all need it to. There's been discussion about the inequity with the express issue. One of our challenges is that the premium that we've been offering, the premium service that we've been offering has been eroding over time. And beyond that, we have that same service in neighborhoods who are not paying the express fare. The number 40 in Blossom Park does the neighborhood, goes direct downtown on the transitway. They pay a regular bus fare. That is wholly inequitable. Mr. Mayor, we have a dedicated, professional, and highly competent leadership team at OC Transpo. They manage one of the biggest and most efficient public transit systems in North America. They have demonstrated repeatedly that when we put our trust in them, they will deliver. They have recommended this new fare structure as the best thing for the city and for public transit. They have recommended it be implemented in January of 2017, and they have detailed why it is a colossal mistake not to. I urge everyone to vote for the recommendation as presented, not to delay, and let's get on with building a world-class public transit system.
Great. Thank you very much. I'd like to say a few words on this issue. We make a lot of decisions around this table, some of them very big, some of them not so big. And I think you'll agree that the few qualify as true city-building decisions. In the last term of council, we had to make some tough decisions to optimize routes. Durant le dernier mandat, nous avons pris des...
The last mandate, we made difficult decisions on optimizing the routes.
Recommendations. The then Chair of Transit, our colleague Councillor Deans, convinced Council that on balance, this was good for the long-term financial sustainability of OC Transpo. And we supported her through a very tough decision-making process. Today, the motion put forward, we're being asked to carve out a large part of our General Manager of Transit's recommendation to the Transit Commission and to vote on just that piece. If you compare today's debate with route optimization, that would be like saying, let's take all of the savings and carve out all of the route changes we don't like and vote on them separately. The vast majority of changes proposed by transit staff were unanimously carried by our Transit Commission on June 15th of this year. When members of the Transit Commission had a close look at the work staff